What's up, guys? Cruise Mitch 42 here, and welcome back to an episode of Katawa Shoujo. Last time we left off, we were just chilling with Lilly and Hanako and Akira. And Akira just left. We announced that we were in a relationship with Lilly to Akira, which then led to a funny little chit-chat. And now she just left, and we're alone with Lilly, and I swear to God, Hisao, if you don't do anything, don't do it. Don't make me edit. Alright, let's get on with this episode. And with that, she turns and strides away, the hand held high as she disappears into the darkened hallway, closing the door behind her. You too, Lilly. Don't look at me all smug. Don't do anything. The most reaction I can muster is flopping forwards onto the table, completely drained of energy and truly exhausted by her. Lilly's ability to hold her own against that suited devil is something I admire. She really is incredibly blunt. I don't think I'll ever be able to keep up with your sister's energy. As I feel Lily's soft hand come to rest on my own, I roll my head to the side to see her gently smiling. For a long time, we simply sit beside each other silently. Given her unquestionably unusual height, she's pretty much exactly as tall as I am. Probably a couple of centimeters higher, if anything. Like this, she appears even taller. The feeling of her pale, soft hand against mine is a pleasant one, as is the sight of the thin, silken pajamas she wears, showing her curves and collarbone. You do get on well, though, even if you do say that. I guess. You know, you two are a lot more alike than I first thought when I met you. And it's a good thing I quickly stopped you from going after her, isn't it? Though she jokes about it, my assessment of my inability to keep up with Akira, either physically or mentally, was quite in earnest. Lily's slow-paced and ladylike, almost motherly nature is perhaps the single thing that helped me most in my first weeks at Yamaku. Come to think of it. Wait, since when were we using protection? As I give a curious look to my side, Lily's cheeks puff out as she huffs at me. Unlike you, I remember it. The packet is in the cupboard next to the sink. So, I'm not the only one of us that takes a pill. In hindsight, I feel rather thoughtless for not remembering it all and leaving it to Lilly. Looking over to the cupboard she mentions, I notice again the knee-high piles of books around this that were here the other times I'd visited. For the most part, they're lined up against the wall to give a little more room around the table. Why don't you get a bookshelf for your books? It's odd to see books just piled around, especially given that your room looks so neat and orderly otherwise. They're easier to find this way. I know exactly which pile each book is in. Wouldn't you still know that after putting each set on a different shelf? That may be, but... So she's not immune to bouts of laziness after all. You have so many of them. It's kind of a shame we can't share our book sets, despite both of us reading so much. She gives a short giggle. Come to think of it, why do you order your books through Yuko? I imagine there'd be plenty of sites that you could order books in Braille from, especially in English Braille. There are a lot of text-to-speech programs, too. She turns her head slightly away from me, which strikes me as somewhat surprising. I'm just not all that good with computers. I'm alright with typewriters and braillers, but that's about it. Her tone almost makes me chuckle. She's a prideful person, so admitting something like that must be difficult. So, Lily's the low-tech kind of person. Given her old-fashioned personality, it's not really a stunning surprise. I wouldn't worry about it. A lot of people aren't really good with them, so it's not that unusual. That's unusual. Now she's even more depressed. It feels like I'm twisting the knife rather than healing her wounds. With a bit of squirming, I shuffle my way closer to her, tentatively putting one hand around her waist to hug her. I'm still not really used to this kind of physical affection, but Lily seems to like it. Wow. I wasn't expecting this. Lily smiles as she turns to face me, a kiss being the reward for giving in to her. She draws me in, brushing my upper lip with hers before pressing against both. This way, even one of my senses is filled with her. The barely perceptible scent of her hair, her taste of her tongue fleeting touches mine, the tenderness of her lips, the image of her filling my mind, the total silence apart from her faint breath. We may have kissed before, but even if this is more of a kiss of simple affection than anything, it's still a new and pleasant sensation. Judging from her vivid blush as she pulls back, it's obvious she feels the same as I do. Even if we're entirely alone, it still feels a little embarrassing to open up to each other like this much. If we take everything day by day, I think that would be for the best. Small steps, right? Yeah, just small steps. We have plenty of time to be together, even after the school year is over. As long as we move together, I think everything will work out okay. Neither of us is going anywhere soon, after all. For now, I'm just thankful for the small moment in time we can spend together. Whew, dodged the bullet on that one. That was nice, though. Dodged the bullet. Alright. We're gonna be in class, aren't we? It's a hallway. Oh, we're going to the nurse. I stand unmoving in front of the door to the nurse's office for what feels like at least a dozen minutes or so. It's not like I never entered the small beige room before, nor is it because of any feeling of childlike anxiety over the visit. Maybe it's because the nurse's office is akin to a confessional, an admission that my body is flawed. The knowledge that such a fact is kept entirely confidential between the nurse and me hardly lessens the feeling. Remembering that this bell to signal the end of lunch break will sound soon, I give a sigh and open the door. The burden will stay with me just this while longer. What's up, nurse? Well, now, if it isn't Nakai. Good to see you. Or bad, I guess, considering that I'm a nurse. He gives a small laugh, amused at his little joke. I find this humor lacking and somewhat off, but the fact that he can make light of such a situation is perhaps comforting, or at least distracting. His brief episode of entertainment over, he claps his hands together and gets down to business. I take a seat as he gestures for me to do so. I wish the classrooms had seats this comfortable. I can feel my mind wandering as my eyes quickly scan the room, distracted by all the small changes since I last came. Alrighty, so what brings you here? I haven't seen you often, so I assume your health's been good so far? Well, mostly. I see. His smile drops as I trail off. I feel slightly guilty about it. It's these moments where I can't rationally call myself normal that make me so reluctant to see the nurse. There's an admission that I'm different from everyone else. While I was on a trip during the long weekend, I had a few problems with my heart. He hums very seriously and nods as he does so, urging me to go on. I think it was when I was walking. It was as I was walking a fairly long distance. I think the right term for it is a heart flutter. I suddenly went weak at the knees and felt almost like I was going to have a small heart attack, but it passed in about half a minute. Even afterwards, though, I felt pretty fatigued and nauseous. Not good. Not good at all. That was how many days ago exactly? Did you do anything unusual aside from exerting yourself before the episode? Were you taking your medication properly? The nurse switches from awkward jokester to serious health professional mode, rattling off questions, making notes, and calling up stuff on his computer. I tell him about my forgetting to take my pills that morning and the preceding evening. It was a stupid thing to do, but I can't change anything about it now, except answer honestly and bite the bullet. His seriousness evolves into a frown, and the talk evolves into an instant checkup. I finish buttoning up my shirt and again get motioned to take a seat in front of the nurse. Is this the first heart problem you've had since coming to Yamaku? I've had short pains in my chest before, just a couple of times, but they were more discomfort than anything like this. He leans back in his chair, briefly resembling a white-coated Poirot as he mulls over the mysterious case of the heart flutter. Moving his lips from side to side to show he's thinking, his non-existent mustache wiggling, he eventually comes to a conclusion. Well, you survived it. That's always on the plus side. I blink at this one, then notice the nurse wearing his got you face. It's actually somewhat reassuring. I don't think he would crack jokes if things were really serious, so I keep silent and take my lumps. I'll have a talk with your doctor, but right now I suspect it's simply due to physical exertion. Have you been keeping up with regular light exercise like I directed you to? I make sure to walk a reasonable amount every day, and it's usually enough to work up a bit of a sweat, but then again I'm not really as fit as I used to be. That should be enough then. The main thing to keep in mind is to do regular low-stress exercise, not short bursts of sprinting and such. I understand. Since leaving the hospital, I've been a lot more focused on my studies, partly to take my mind off of not being able to do more physical things. It's good to hear you're coping well. Sudden lifestyle changes can be hard at the best of times, so I'm pleased to hear that you sound like you have everything in order. Almost everything, that is. Nevertheless, I want to keep a close eye on you for a while, just for observation's sake. Just to make sure things aren't going downhill, you understand? That's something I really didn't want to hear. Since coming to Yamaku, all I've wanted to do is live as normal a life as possible. Observation was one of the words I came to hate most during my hospital stay. For so long I felt as if I could have just walked straight out the hospital doors, if not for that observation the doctors wanted so dearly. Sure, should I come in more often? He checks the calendar next to his computer, which seems to inflict on him a nasty case of furrowed brow. He spins back towards me after that. The summer holidays are a bit of a pain considering the timing. I'll check with your doctor to try and get a better handle on the situation and see how he wants to proceed. But I think you should just take things slowly and carefully for now. What you're describing doesn't immediately sound like a recurring event, but it won't hurt to slow down a bit for a while, just to make sure. What should I do for today? He looks over my shoulder at a clock hanging over the door. I'd never have noticed it if I hadn't followed his gaze. It's nearly time for school to be over, so you may as well just leave early. He gives me a sly wink, making sure that I understand he's doing me a favor. Well, nurse's orders. Thanks. That's what I'm here for, after all. I know you might not want to hear this, but you can't ignore your condition. Don't hesitate to see me if you have any further problems, or if you just have anything you want to ask. Bye. He spins around and gets back to typing on the computer in front of him. I suppose I'll just read before waiting for Lilly by the gate, considering I don't have much else to do. Even as I leave, his words echo in my mind. My condition isn't something as limiting as many of the others here in Yamaku, and I don't want to burden Lilly with thinking about it. If I just live life normally and avoid any short and sharp shocks, I should be okay. I won't let my condition rule me. Good for you, Hisao. Okay. Lilly comes into view soon after the bells hurtling the end of the school day ring out. She says farewell to a number of her classmates headed in the other direction, before beginning her weekly trip to the convenience store. Good afternoon, Lilly. The immediate warm smile and relaxed demeanor she assumes upon noticing my presence are unexpectedly welcoming. Hello, Hisao. Good afternoon to you, too. She hesitates for a second, but eventually doesn't to tilt her face forward and close her eyes. Most meet her is with a measure of slight trepidation before we move off, hand in hand. The fact that we're so close tonight is somewhat useful at times, there being no need for either of us to turn our head upwards nor downwards in order to meet the others. It doesn't take much time to leave the noise of the other students far behind us. The tapping of Lily's cane in her free hand, the only sound to be heard. Silence, blissful silence, is all that greets us while we slowly walk in the setting sunlight. I think I'm coming to really like this town. The huge, green, hilly expanse, the trees everywhere, the somewhat rustic little buildings. You've come to appreciate the tranquility of it as well. I think so. I came from a metropolitan city near Tokyo, so the quiet of this town really alienated me when I first arrived. After a while, it became really nice. Though, I think I prefer it to the hustle and bustle of my home city now. Well, I preferred the quiet of such a rural town even when I first arrived. I suppose I had the advantage of growing up in a quiet area before I came. Hanako said the surroundings are very pretty too. Lily may say such a thing quite easily, but each time she mentions how others describe sights around her as beautiful or pretty, I feel a little put off. I notice her expression becoming one of anticipation for some question or another. She's always had a good sense for when somebody's not saying something that's on their mind, so I may as well pick up on it. I might as well speak up. I was kind of wondering, how to put this. Do you ever regret that you can't see what things look like for yourself? It's just something I've been thinking about. She thinks carefully for a time. Not long. Do you ever regret that you can't hear people whispering on the other side of a room? I can only speak for myself, but the fact that I can't see is the only way I've experienced life. Just as I cannot do something you can. You can't do something that I'm capable of. The fact that the world is made for those who are sighted can be a pain sometimes. But there are many people who suffer much more than I because of the way the world is. That does make sense, but still, it just feels kind of bad to describe something that you can't experience to you. She tilted her head quizzically, as if I'd just said something that makes very little sense at all. But I can experience it. You just said yourself that you like this area because of the way the surroundings are. I like this area for the very same reason. Thanks to the fact that this is a small rustic town surrounded by trees, it gives some peace and quiet away from the din at school and the bustle, not to mention the smells of the city. I suppose it would also be much like the home she shared with the Kira as well. Her outlook on it seems pretty sensible, and I'm not surprised that she's got a much better handle on her particular condition than I do on mine. Just like how her coming from a location somewhat similar to Yamaku's surroundings let her become more acclimatized in a shorter time. Being born blind affected her stance by her own admission. I should stop being so annoyed with myself over it, but I can't shake the feeling that I've depended on Lilly far too much, given the circumstances most have had to deal with in Yamaku. That makes a lot of sense. You're pretty good at explaining, as always. Come to think of it, where is Hanako anyway? She was with us for lunch. It seems she's busy studying. The exams are far from over, and she said she wants to do better this year than the last. While I admire her work ethic, she's really been trying to give us a lot of room alone recently. She's the type of person, I think. The kind that puts others' needs above her own at every chance. She's a sweet girl, even though so much has hurt her in the past. I don't know. I feel like it's only now, when she's less close to me than ever, that she's truly finding herself. It was thanks to you that she began to become more confident, after all, not me. I took my hand from hers and gently placed it on her head. The important thing is that you were there for her. I can't even imagine what she'd be like without having found someone like you. That much became obvious while you were in Scotland. We're all still friends, so we've just got to have faith in her. I think she'll become a good person, and that much is thanks to you being there for her when she most needed it, just as you were there for me. It makes me feel a bit childish when you sound so wise. Well, I try. Are you doing anything on the weekend by any chance? Nothing that comes to mind. Why? Then how about a date on Sunday? It'd be something to do besides exam preparation. Countering my rapidly beating heart, she simply smiles and nods. That would be lovely. Where would you like to go? Her face suddenly changes to one of disapproval. You can't do that, Hisao. That's cheating. Do what? A gentleman should never ask a lady where to have a date. Oh. Her smile quickly comes back, assuring me that she's far from serious. Don't worry about it. I'll think about where we can go. I'll leave it to you then. I promise to decide on the next date, though. With our plans for the weekend made, the rest of the walk down the hill continues in silence. The prospect of that lasting for any length of time, however, is shattered as I catch sight of a familiar figure waiting for us, her hand held high. Who is it? Oh, it's Akira! Yo! What up, Akira? I didn't expect to run into Akira. Thank you. Please come again. The change in temperature as I step outside from the convenience store sends a chill up my spine. It feels like summer is starting to wind down. Looking to my side, the same feeling seems to affect Lilly as well, though unlike me, she doesn't manage to hide the fact. Something I didn't realize at first was how physically delicate she is, even compared to the likes of Hanako. If I had to describe her, I'd have to say that she reminds me of a China doll. Kira walks up behind her and gives a couple of hard pats on her shoulder, much to Lilly's consternation. For a moment, she looks as envious of my status as an only child, as I am of their close relationship. They talk between themselves for a few moments as I sort out my bags. Their voice is too low for me to catch, but eventually they break off and we begin the walk back to school. It feels good to be out of that damned office. You kids don't know how good you have it here. Kids. You too, then. Kids grow up so fast nowadays. You're not old enough to say that. I don't know. Being around Hidekai makes me feel damn old. He's so precious. Precocious? Or precious? I think that's precious. He reminds me of when you were younger. It's definitely precious. He's a nice boy. It would be a shame if Shizune comes to have too much of an influence on him. Akira gives an amused snort at her sister's entropy. She really doesn't seem to regard it as anything to make a serious fuss about, treating it more like a childhood spat. She looks over to me, apparently only just remembering that I'm here, and gives me a small grin as she reaches towards her back pocket. What is it? Just a sec, let me dig it out. After quite some difficulty, she managed to retrieve her black leather wallet from her back pocket, quickly fishing out what looks to be a folded square of paper. I know exactly what it is. With Lilly all but unaware of what's happening, Akira unfolds the scrap and hands it to me. Oh, never mind, it is not. Okay. I thought it was something else. Never mind then, I'll take my assumption and throw it in my back pocket. An old photo of what looks to be a younger Lilly and Shizune operating a noodle stall with some other girl in the background. She looks vaguely familiar, but I can't quite pinpoint why. Huh, this is an interesting photo. What is it, Akira? I think you know. Lilly mulls this over for a few moments before realization dawns on her. Akira, you really needn't. It's fine, isn't it? Besides, it's like the only photo I have of you two since you entered Yamaku, where you were not at each other's throats. I look back down to the photo in my hand. It does seem strange to see Lilly and Chizune working together so diligently without any sign of animosity. If the photos of them during Yamaku's festival, that means it must have been taken 1 or 2 years ago. In other words, the time when they were both in the student council together. There's the girl in the back. She looks kind of familiar. Heh, I knew you wouldn't recognize her. It's Misha before she went and dyed her hair pink. Oh shoot, really? That's awesome! That's Misha? No way. It feels extremely strange to see Misha without her so very distinctively hairstyle. Judging from Akira's tone, she doesn't take favorable to Misha's idea of fashion. Huh! That's pretty funny. I was wondering who that was too. I was like, this is definitely one of the characters. I suppose the fact just accentuates how odd the situation looks. I didn't even know her hair was dyed after all these years. Her hair is dyed. It's not just an anime color of her hair. She actually dyed her hair pink. That's really funny. To think they were so friendly in the past, I wish I could do something to mend their relationship. You're being very quiet, Hisao. It just feels kind of strange to see you all so friendly like this. Lilly moves to say something, but stops herself. In the end, this isn't a matter for me. It's between Chizune and Lilly and nobody else. Things change, unfortunately. I hand the photo back to Akira, who signs as she folds it up and slides it back into her wallet. The little memory, quietly hidden away, to be pulled out again sometime later. Yeah, that they do. Alright, I'm going to end off here because it's getting pretty late into the episode. So, we're going to leave it here on this depressing expressions. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode of Katawa Shoujo. I know I did. I never knew that Misha had brown hair. And long-ass hair, too. I mean, her hair is long now, but Jesus Christ, her hair was longer. That's really funny. But yeah, guys, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Katawa Shoujo. If you enjoyed, make sure to like, comment down below. So if you're not subscribed, channel, subscribe as well for the Katawa Shoujos and the Minecrafts and all that good stuff. And yeah, that's it for me. This is Christmas 42, and I will see you all in another video. Bye-bye!